Greetings photographers, and today I have a brand new lens to show you which has stirred up a bit of interest, the Tamron 150 to 500mm f5 to 6.7 Di III VC VXD. It is for full frame cameras, and it's also Tamron's first long telephoto zoom lens specifically designed for mirrorless cameras. Its unique features are its impressively small size for a 500mm lens, enabling it to fit into your camera bag quite easily, as well as fast autofocus and an ability to shoot very closely to your subject. Oh, and it's supposed to be very sharp too. Well, we'll be the judge of that in a minute. Its zoom range is long telephoto all the way, and its maximum aperture of f5 at the wide angle end and f6.7 as you zoom in is pretty dark, although that does contribute to the lens's more compact size. It is only for Sony's mirrorless E-mount cameras. Its cost of $1,400 in the US or £1,300 in the UK is certainly pricey for a lens with a relatively dark maximum aperture. Let's hope the quality is there, because this is not a budget lens option. I'd like to thank Tamron's UK distributor for loaning me this lens for testing for a couple of weeks, although as usual this is a totally independent review. As I've mentioned, it's surprisingly small for a lens of this kind, feeling more like a 400mm lens, although it does feel a little heavy, weighing 1.7 kilograms or just under 4 pounds. It's based on a metal lens mount with a weather sealing gasket, and the rest of the body is made of plastic but feels very solid and tightly assembled. It comes with a strong metallic tripod collar which is easily adjustable and removable. Towards the rear comes a plastic focus ring. It turns averagely smoothly and works responsively with the focus motor, and as you can see here, there's almost no discernible focus breathing. For autofocus, the lens uses Tamron's VXD system, or Voice Coil Extreme Torque Drive. As you can see here, it works nice and quickly, confidently and accurately without making any noise, which is great. The lens's zoom ring is large and rubberized, turning evenly and slightly stiffly. It can be locked at 150mm for transport, or you can simply push the ring forward to lock it into any position. The lens features its own image stabilization, which Tamron always call VC. Here is some footage with it turned off and now turned on. As you can see, it works averagely well, but I have seen a better. It has a panning mode and a framing mode, neither of which seem to make much difference when shooting video. The lens comes with a good quality plastic hood, and its filter size is 82mm. The front edge of the lens has a rubber seal for extra protection in case you bump it into something. Overall, the lens has really rugged build quality, feeling tough and a little heavy, and while its image stabilization is not spectacular, its autofocus is very good. Now onto image quality. I'll start by testing it on a full frame camera, my 42MP Sony A7R III. In-camera corrections are turned on. At 150mm and f5, the lens is very sharp in the middle, with very good contrast, although you can get a bit sharper than this. Over in the corners, the image is softer, but still not bad. Stop down to f8 and those corners sharpen up, and image quality back in the middle is razor sharp now. f11 looks just as good in the middle, but over in the corners we see another improvement in sharpness there. At f16, the lens is beginning to get a bit softer due to the effect of diffraction. Let's zoom in to 300mm. Now the maximum aperture is f5.6, and in the middle of the image, sharpness is just good. Again, the corners are just a little softer. At f8, they get slightly sharper, and the middle is very sharp now. Like at 150mm, f11 is just as sharp in the middle, but the corners get a little better. Now let's zoom all the way into 500mm. The maximum aperture has really darkened now down to f6.7. The lens shows its impressive consistency by remaining quite sharp in the middle with good contrast. Corner image quality is a little sharper than it was at wider angles though, looking pretty good straight from the maximum aperture. f8 looks about the same, but at f11, back in the middle, we see excellent resolution now. So, Overall, on a full frame camera, the Tamron lens offers good contrast and consistently good, but not truly excellent, sharpness. It's a pretty good performance, and certainly anyone with a 24 megapixel camera will be delighted. If you own a Sony a7R IV though, don't expect to get 61 megapixel images out of it. The 42 megapixel sensor of my Sony a7R III is really pushing the limit of its capabilities. Well, let's see how it performs on an APS-C camera now. Here it is on my 24 megapixel Sony a5100. At 150mm and f5, the picture is nice and sharp in the middle, but the corners do look a little softer. The image stays this sharp down to f11, where a little softness begins to creep in due to the effect of diffraction on the smaller APS-C sensor. Let's zoom into 300mm, and it's basically the same story here, quite sharp in the middle and a bit softer in the corners, and stopping down the lens to f8 or f11 brings some minuscule improvements. And again, at 500mm, it really is the same story, sharp in the middle at the maximum aperture and softer in the corners. f8 looks about the same, but f11 is a bit sharper in the corners. So generally, it is a boringly consistent performance here, but that is no bad thing. On an APS-C camera, the lens is always sharp in the middle, and the corners always need just a little stopping down for best results. Alright, let's see about distortion and vignetting on a full frame camera. These pictures are taken with in-camera corrections turned off. Again, it's another incredibly consistent performance. There's some pincushion distortion throughout the zoom range from 150 to 500mm, and at the brightest apertures, the corners will always be noticeably dark. Stop down to f8 and the corners will brighten up again. So you should keep in-camera corrections turned on with this lens. Now, on to close-up image quality. Whether you're zoomed in or out, this lens can get you fantastically close to smaller subjects, but zoom out to 150mm for a slightly closer distance. So, at 150mm and f5, the close-up image quality is excellent, although some purple fringing is visible on contrasting edges. Stop down to f8 and that fringing goes away. Let's see how this lens works against bright lights now. The good news here is that flaring is not really a problem with this lens. Whether you're zoomed out or zoomed in, it maintains your contrast very well. And finally, bokeh. When it comes to out of focus backgrounds, there are no real issues here. Even difficult backgrounds are rendered quite nicely, as you can see. So I had a good time testing this new Tamron lens. It's relatively compact considering its zoom range, its autofocus and image quality are all good, and its close shooting capability is really enjoyable too. I think Tamron are asking a bit too much money for it here. The lens's performance is consistently very good, but perhaps not quite $1,400 good, and its marketplace is getting increasingly crowded. Still, for anyone looking for a nicely handling lens in the smallest size possible with a good long reach, I can recommend it. That's it for now. I hope you found this review helpful. If ever you thought to yourself, boy, Chris just doesn't put out enough content for me, I need more, then check out my Patreon page, where supporters of this channel can find all kinds of exclusive content, from exclusive videos to advanced previews and special pictures. Check it out in the description below. Ciao!